The power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as to grant free pardon and to give up all claim on account of an offense or debt. Forgiveness is a tricky thing. In many cases, it's easier to strike back at an enemy than to turn the other cheek. Most people preach it is better to forgive than to seek vengeance for an offense. For men like Dr. Martin Luther King, forgiveness was not just a term or a suggestion, it was a way of life. Dr. Martin Luther King was fueled by his personal strength of forgiveness. He felt in order to have a world that exists as colorblind and to be able to get past all of the racial separation and hatred, people needed to be able to forgive each other and embrace one another as brothers and sisters. He felt that the best way to instill this view of forgiveness was to actually display it to others and lead by example. There were many events in his life that actually put his view of being able to forgive unconditionally to the test. To say that Dr. Martin Luther King was a pioneer in terms of the world as it is today is definitely an understatement, and like the pioneers of old, he endured many hardships that would make those of a lesser heart give up and roll over. But not Dr. Martin Luther King. In the face of hatred and disorder, he maintained his stance on forgiveness, even forgiving those who, by popular opinion, did not deserve it. Dr. King went through a series of marches and movements in which he and the civil rights movement underwent more and greater challenges, either from state governments, police forces, or even from the local denizens. Through it all, Dr. King still believed that forgiveness and nonviolent protest were the only weapons they needed to combat these threats. For example, during the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, Dr. King experienced one of his greatest successes in the movement, but also hardships. He was arrested during the bus boycott, and his house was actually firebombed by angry Ku Klux Klan men who believed that he was a threat to white superiority. Most people would have been deterred by this, but Dr. King believed that this was actually a good thing. He believed that their hatred could not stop his movement, and thus he forgave them, because he felt that while it was a direct attack on him, it was a sign that his message of ending racial discrimination was actually starting to take root. It was pretty incredible that Dr. King could forgive after such an event occurred, because honestly not many people could. But his forgiveness and perseverance in the bus boycott ended with a success, as legislation was passed that ended racial segregation on all Montgomery public buses. It was one of his first major successes in one of his first major displays of forgiveness, and it surely was not his last.